Welcome to Hockey Inside Out. I'm your host, Adam Susser, and I'm here with Stu Cowan, Chris Nilan, and CBC Daybreak's Jessica Rusnak. Let's start the show. Here are today's topics. Number 1, what happened to the Canadiens in Denver? Number 2, how far can the Habs go in the playoffs if they don't make a move before the trade deadline? Number 3, what's the deal with the Canadiens penalty-killing unit? Number 4 is our viewer question of the week, which asks someone to please explain Therrien's so-called system. Number 5 is Michel Therrien using Alex Galchenyuk effectively. Let's get started. On Tuesday night, the Canadiens fell hard in Denver, losing 4-0 to the worst team in the NHL. In the process, they extended their losing streak to a season-worst 4 games. As per usual, fans in Montreal are calling for a firing of everyone. What happened?
Well, it doesn't help when you get scored on the first shot, and then you're down 2-0 a couple of minutes into the game. Carey Price is 0-5 now in his last 5 road games. But I was wondering, Chris, you might be able to answer this, the altitude in Denver.
I'm so sick hearing excuses about tired, compressed schedule, altitude. Forget about it. The fact of the matter is they didn't show up. If you go back and listen to all the tapes, and to me it's all bullshit, that after the All-Star break, we're refreshed, we're ready to go again. They win a game and then they go on this skid like they're on. All teams have holes, I get it, but I wonder if we overestimated this team once again because, all the character, they get character, Shaw, Weber, all this, and to go and play a team like Colorado and forget about the altitude, forget about getting scored on the first shift. Well, you better get your ass in gear after that. And they play a hapless, meaningless game, and they played to that level. To me, it's ridiculous is what it is.
I felt that they gave up after that second goal was scored. I think it was just over 2 minutes into the game. There was no pushback from the Canadiens, and that's where you want to see that leadership come into play to say, come on, guys, there's still tons of time left to play. We're an offensive team. We can do this. We have players that can, but there hasn't been any of that. And what's surprising is you expected this kind of play from the Canadiens when all those players were hurt. Now as they're coming back, they just can't seem to get their act together.
Well, the leadership group is now, I think, going to come into question also, this new leadership group from last year. I mean, Max Pacioretty got as angry as I think I've ever seen Max on the ice, and he was pushing and shoving in front of the bench, but nobody else really seemed to. And they talk about this is a new team, it's a new leadership group. Well, now is really the test. They go into Arizona, they've just lost to the worst team in the league, and now they're going to play the second worst team in the league. So another stinker like that, then I think you really, really, really have cause for concern. But again, it's a slump. All teams go through a slump, but as Chris said, they didn't show up, and that's a real concern.
And that's troubling. If you're contending teams, don't do that. They don't play that way. You're going to have the odd hiccup. There's been too many hiccup, not show up games this season.
Has there been, though? You'd go so far to say that you think the team could maybe be overestimated just because they had a terrible game and on our bit of
overestimation is one thing. Not showing up's another. I don't care who you are. If you have a heartbeat, you show up to play hockey, and they haven't. And a lot of the 17 losses, or whatever they have, I think it's 17 losses. They probably played out of those 17, maybe 5 good games where they might have had a shot at winning. And to me, that's way too much as far as games not showed up.
And the offense, 3 goals in 4 games. They're getting zero offense out of the center position. They're getting little offense from the point. They're getting little offense from anywhere. And I think that's a real concern moving forward. Is, whatever you say, the team that scores the most goals still wins the game, and they're not scoring very many goals.
And if you see, too, the way that they play against teams that are at the top level of the standings, that's where they've had trouble with. But this Colorado game, it was almost like you knew this might have happened because it was a game that was on paper so easily winnable for them. Last time they played them in December, they won 10-1. That it was just a performance that Chris said no one showed up for it.
And coming on the same day, the Boston Bruins fired Claude Julien.
The altitude.
Okay, I think I have a feeling of where this answer is going to this next question, but how far do you think the Habs can go in the playoffs if they don't make a move before the trade deadline?
I think they have to do something now to just shake up the team at the moment, that they're kind of in this lull and they need something, a big trade or an addition of a player who has this kind of character that they're looking for, the leadership to just give them a second boost, because they're going to need it now. If you look at the standings, you've got the Leafs creeping up on you, something that Canadiens fans don't want to see, and you've also got the Ottawa Senators not far behind, that you don't have that luxury of a big buffer anymore in the standings.
With Carey Price, anything's possible in the playoffs, but he's not playing like Carey Price right now. But as we were saying before, offense up the middle, they need to get somebody at center who can produce some points, whether it's Matt Duchene or somebody else. Otherwise, they're not going to go far with the offense they have right now.
Matt Duchene, you're going to trade half your team away to get him. They're not going to give him up for like one player. Even say you did a 1-for-1 deal, like just say Galchenyuk for him. Sakic ain't doing that. He wants defensemen. He wants Sergachev. He wants this. He wants way too much for that player, and he'll probably stick to his gun. So I forget about Duchene. And as far as them making the playoffs and being in the playoffs and doing well in the playoffs, who knows? Who knows who's going to show up as far as a hockey team? Do they have to make a move? Listen, I'm sure this general manager would like to. And regardless, I know everybody says, oh, it's too hard to make a move, Mark. Well, you know what? A lot of times it is. And a lot of times it's too difficult in the sense you want to screw up that whole structure of your team and that core of your team to go get this one player. You might have to, like I said, a guy like Duchene, you're giving away way too much to get him. And I think that'll shake your team up too much. And you just don't know who's going to show up as far as the playoffs go. So, yeah, I don't know. This team has me confused.
Well, well, the playoffs, too. The President's Trophy that's given to the team, the regular season champions, only 2 times in the last 10 years has that team gone out to win the Stanley Cup. So the playoffs, they always say you get to the playoffs, anything can happen, anything can happen. But Carey Price, the biggest question mark for me right now for the Canadiens going forward is Carey Price going to regain the form that Carey Price has had in the past?
Do you not think they can get Duchene for maybe Beaulieu and a first-round draft pick? No?
Well, also, Pierre LeBrun said this week that Colorado is not necessarily needing to trade him before the deadline, that they might hold on to him into the draft.
They don't have to.
And see, because they know they're not making the playoffs, they don't need to do anything now, so their focus is on next season, and maybe they could get something bigger at the draft.
Exactly.
The thing that was interesting watching Duchene, though, against the Canadiens can't win a face-off. And Duchene has won over 60% of his faceoffs this year, his tops in the NHL, which is a remarkable stat. And just watching him win and then watching the Habs lose faceoff after faceoff after faceoff, it's another problem they've been having.
Okay. The Canadiens are ranked 22nd on the penalty kill. What do you think has happened to that? They used to be good at that.
I think they sit back too much. Every single time you see, especially the game against Washington, was they just sit back and wait for them to make a mistake and capitalize on it, which hasn't been working that well. That they need to be more aggressive instead of sitting back and waiting for their opportunities. Go out there and create opportunities.
Yeah, they sit back a lot. And the thing that I think the heat has to be a little bit on J.J. Daigneault now, because he was in charge of the power play, which was terrible. They took him off the power play. They brought in Kirk Muller. Now the power play is good. They put Daigneault in charge of the penalty killing. Now the penalty killing started. But I mean, what surprised me, the Canadiens have so many guys who can kill penalties, and they sit back in the box. They're not aggressive at all. With a guy like Byron, if you're on the power play and Byron's out there, you're almost playing a little defense too, because he's so dangerous out there. But it just seems they sit back, they stay in the box, and they don't pressure the guy with the puck on the power play.
It's great to delegate, like we can say Daigneault, but it's a head coach's responsibility, bottom line. And they are too passive, I believe. They're too passive, and your goaltender is the best penalty killer, and right now he's not. And this team is way too passive. When you want to press, it's easy to say press, but you have to have one guy who starts that press, and then the other 3 players work in unison with him to jump in and fill holes. And I don't see that happening. I don't see someone starting the press on the half wall, and as soon as that guy on the half wall moves a puck, someone's jumping right away. They are way too passive. I'd like to see him be more aggressive, but I'd like to see this team do a lot of things, and they're not doing it.
One guy they might be missing on the penalty kill also was Lars Eller. That was one of the key roles that he...
Smart fella, that one.
Okay, it's time for our HIO Viewer Question of the Week. This week's HIO Viewer Question comes to us from Jim Frost in Halifax, who will also receive a signed copy of John Scott's new book, A Guy Like Me. We're going to give away one more book next week, so write in with your questions. Jim asks, can someone please explain Therrien's so-called system? I watch virtually every game, and some nights it is truly unwatchable. Is it just Jim who's finding these games unwatchable, or any of you having those problems?
Chris, you've played with different systems in the NHL.
You know, I find it funny that when they were 13-1 or whatever they were this year, the system was fine. And they have not changed the system. So if you were watching the beginning of the year, the execution was there within this system and it worked just fine. And it's not working now. So, I don't know.
Every NHL coach's system is based on defense. And Mike Babcock the other day talking about his young Leafs team was saying how the Leafs are catching up to the Canadiens. And he's saying they're fun to watch. The fans love watching them. They love playing it. But it's driving him crazy and they're losing games. He says they're losing games 6-5. And he's saying, if you want to win, you got to play. And I think it was Babcock said the right way, something you always hear Michel Therrien said. But all systems in the NHL are defense oriented, and Babcock said if you play good defense, you'll score more goals, and he says he believes that. So I don't think there's that huge of a difference between different systems and different teams around the NHL. When Gerard Gallant went to Florida, he said he'd use basically the same system.
You have to. There's not enough Red Army players around. Think about it. I mean, you're lucky if you get top 6. You're lucky if you have really 6 top 6 players. And the rest are just marginal players, and that's why we talk about parity and defensive
salary
systems and all that stuff. So, that's what the game is.
I think it's just a matter that the team right now is not playing all that well.
Oh, but Pittsburgh. They're really fast, Pittsburgh. They're fast. Why can't everybody be like them?
Yeah. Well, they've got this
Malkin,
guy named
Crosby.
Sidney Crosby,
Oh, God, how come everybody can't be like Pittsburgh?
Well, but that's what kind of makes me laugh, too, is like if you look at Pittsburgh, how bad they were for such a long period of time, or even Chicago, that I don't think the Canadiens could ever do a rebuild like that because they wouldn't be able to put up with it for that long, even though the Canadiens haven't really all been that successful.
Yeah, they burned the Bell Center down if it felt like that. Forgot about it.
A 4-game losing streak like now, and fans are going crazy.
Yeah.
And the team's still in first place in the division. So it's what Toronto's doing, and they seem to be doing it really well. I don't know if Montreal fans would have the appetite for that.
Yeah.
Definitely not. Alex Galchenyuk has scored 1 goal in the 12 games since he's returned from injury. What's going on there? Is Michel Therrien not playing him properly?
I think it's a knee injury. So a knee injury, your cardio is going to take a hit. I just don't think he's back. And then, he came back, he got hurt again. I just don't think he's 100% game shape. And I think Therrien's trying to break him in a little slowly. He had him back at center with Byron and Lankinen against Colorado. I sort of like that line. But I think Galchenyuk just needs to get healthy and get his game shape back, and he'll be back to where he was.
Yeah, he's not in shape. He's got to work harder. Is the coach using him effectively? Is he being effective? Mm-hmm. That's the thing. And you look at his. I always watch him practice. He goes and practices one-timer from his little office there. But you know what? Go and practice your face-offs, and I mean practice them. Dig in when it's time. I've seen him work on face-offs in practice. He's out there like, people watching me, dig in and work at it if you want to get better at it. And I haven't seen him do that. The times I've been over there at practice and I've seen him working on his face-offs, half-assing it. And you can't half-ass it in this league. You want to get better, you got to work to get better. Listen, I get the one-timers and stuff, but come on, how many times are you going to be loading up over there, okay? That's the natural part of his game, the offense. You got to work on the other part of your game. You got to want to do that. You got to want to get better. Alex Galchenyuk, you watch him, and it happened last night. Dead tired, ices the puck, comes back down. His point man shoots the puck. Forget about it. And he's supposed to be a centerman. He can't work down low. He just does not grasp that part of the game. And if you want to grasp it and they're trying to teach it to him, you have to want to learn it.
Well, I think he's got a little bit of an ego to him, Alex Galchenyuk. And I think perhaps Philip Danault really doing a good job replacing him when he got injured might have been something that I think he wanted the team to do well, but the fact that the guy who came to replace you has done a really good job at replacing you might have been a little bit of a factor to it. So I think what he needs to do is put his ego aside and say, if I want to be the number one center of this team, I will show you that I'm the number one center, not just because my name is Alex Galchenyuk and everyone has said that this will eventually be my position.
Mm-hmm. I think I see your point. And I also think that with some with Lakin and Byron, I think you need to just put him somewhere and leave him there for a while right now. Like they had him on the wing, then back at center, then decide, is he your center or is he your winger? And if he's your center, put him there, live with some of the mistakes he's going to make, work with him. As you say, maybe get on him harder in practice to work on it. Kirk Muller was a pretty good centerman in his day. You should be able to teach him
well, there's a guy obviously worked with him, but listen, you got to want to do it, and I'm concerned about this kid as far as being this number one centerman. He supposedly is. I know one thing: number one centers will be able to play the whole rink, not half of it. And
I think mentally too, as a contract year for him, and
yeah.
injury and missing that time, I think that might be playing with his mind a bit also.
Wait till the ego comes out with the contract. He's going to want $8 million because I'm the best.
Okay, that is our show for this week. We'll be back next Thursday as per usual. Leave a comment in the comments section, like the video, and subscribe to us if you haven't already. From all of us here at the Gazette, we want to thank you for tuning in. I'm Adam Susser. I'll see you next week, Habs fans.